Welcome. In this video, we're just going to go over adding new users to the Meraki platform. There's a few different ways to do this. The part that I'm speaking specifically about here is associating the user's iTunes account with our volume purchasing account so that they can receive apps. So this is just one of many steps that we'll use in the classroom. And this step is actually designed for performance before the iPads are issued to students. Generally, I would recommend that you do this perhaps the night before or the day before. A few reasons for that. This often goes into the student's junk email folder. So if they have something that cleans out their junk email pretty frequently, if we sent it to them over break, it may be deleted by the time we get in the classroom. So try to do this the day before or even the morning before, whichever is your preference. Okay, we'll get to it. Right now, I'm in the devices dashboard inside our Meraki account. We're going to need a couple other things, so have multiple tabs open. We're also going to need to have the Microsoft Teams tab open. That's where we'll access the template for importing. And then finally, we'll also need a tab for our access to the list of students that will be entering the program. So let's start with accessing the template. We're going to go to our Microsoft Teams account, EMS full-time faculty. Inside the iPad team, we've got a couple resources. In this team, though, we linked from this page to our SharePoint account, and we've got some file folders to access. So the iPad information folder will be useful for setting up iPads. You probably have already gotten into this if this is what you're going to be doing. So I've marked it so it's the first template that's present. Let's go ahead and, for me, I'm going to download this, but you can certainly access and use the browser version of Excel to work on this. I'm going to open this up. Now remember, this isn't going to be uploaded as an Excel document. It needs to be a CSV file. And a CSV file changes some of the formatting of the document. For example, it doesn't like hyperlinks. So this hyperlink that I provided for you in case you need help to get to the Meraki help page on this topic is stripped. So you'll just have to copy and paste it into the browser. Okay, so I've listed in this template my information as the example. And so we're going to change that a little bit before we upload because I'm already in Meraki, and we're not going to upload this for students necessarily right now because that will be actually what you're doing, but I'll walk you through the steps. Okay, so we've got our template. Excellent. You can read those lines here on some information that's provided, but that's also prompted when you upload this file. Now let's go to our My CNM tab. We're going to go to Faculty and Advisors. And we want to access our banner account, so we'll click on Web for Faculty. We're going to go to Class List. We're doing this video in fall 2019 for the incoming class. We'll hit Submit. So you'll actually have to be associated in Banner with one of the first term classes so that you can pull the list of students. Usually this is done in the paramedic prep course that Colt designed, so that may be the class that you're tied to. I'm actually tied to Human Systems, so we'll pull that list here. All right, we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. We're going to do a faculty class download. What we need is the email and the phone number of the student for this. Everything else is actually not necessary for our use. Let's go ahead and select those two checkboxes and hit download. I'm going to open this up and we're going to copy into the template. All right, so again, the three things that we need are email, name, and then their phone number in the information tab. Now, the order that we have is a little different than this setup. So the recommended template is going to be email first. So I'm going to actually just organize it here. Then name, put that in the column next to it, and then phone number. Now, a few students here are missing their phone numbers, and we do want to have the phone numbers in this so that if you're on this page and you have to access the student, much like if you're using FizzDAP, we want to be able to go to the information tab and have direct access by their cell phone number, hopefully. So these few that are missing that information will need to contact. All right, so we're going to copy all of this together, and we're going to go to our template. adding right below my name, and then we will save the file as a CSV. Before we upload though, we need to get rid of these header lines because the Meraki platform won't read them. And if there's a blank line in here, it won't necessarily mess up the import from Meraki because Meraki ignores blank lines, however, and lines without an email address. However, we are going to need a count of the students so that we know the right number of rows is being checked before we import. That'll make more sense in a moment. Now, the only difference that I'm going to make here so that I don't actually import these students is we would be leaving them here, deleting my information, but I'm going to delete their information and I'm going to put my Gmail account here so we can see what the invite is like. I'm already in the system under my edu account, so we'll need to change that a little bit. Okay, so quick note, when we're saving the CSV file, something to take note of is that the actual use of Excel, whether it's on a Mac or on a Windows device, this actually used to be only an issue with Macs, there's multiple CSV file types. We can see UTF-8 here. Next one coming down, CSV, comma, delimited, Macintosh, MS-DOS. So make sure that you're selecting an appropriate one. I've been using the comma delimited file format for this, but I have had errors if I use the Macintosh. If you're on the Mac, it may default to the CSV Macintosh, so you may have to physically change it. All the same options should be available in the Mac versions of Excel as well. So we want to make sure that is present. It's already saved that way, so we're good to go. I'm going to close this out, and we're now going to go to Meraki. Okay, so we've come to the devices dashboard inside Meraki. When you log into Meraki, this is actually where you'll land, so it's the first screen that you access. We're going to go to the Systems Manager tab here, and we're going to move over to Manage. Now notice there's a few settings here, and one of them says Add Devices. So technically, we're not actually adding devices. What we're doing in this step right now is giving the student access to the apps license that we've purchased, and it does so by basically linking our volume purchasing account, essentially our App Store account, to their iTunes and App Store account that they have under their own username. So that's an important distinction because the add device section is what we do in the classroom, and the volume purchasing is basically what we do ahead of time before they set up their device. So let's go to volume purchasing. In this tab, we've got a list of all the devices, all the apps that we have licenses for. We're going to move over to the user management tab. And a few things to point out here. So the Add User tab right here, the Add User button, is going to be useful if we're adding one or two users. And you see it has the same information, name, email, and it's called Notes really, but we're going to put phone numbers into that place. And you do want to send invitations automatically so that they can actually get it in their email. We're going to do this in bulk, so we're going to upload from a CSV. This dialog box has some information on what will happen if you have blank cells or rows, so you can read that as necessary or pause the video now. We're going to upload our CSV file, so let's click on that. Okay, so there's a little prompt here once we upload the file. We haven't imported anything just yet, but Meraki's software is going to check to make sure that the data that we're inputting, the information on the students, is valid. So this is where I mentioned you want to know how many students you're trying to import, and that would kind of give you how many rows you have except for the header. And so this doesn't actually count the header. It's found one row, and in that row is one valid user. If there's an error here, then just go back to the original file, fix that error, and then upload it again. If the valid user and rows are off what you anticipated, it may be that there's a formatting issue, so check the file type that it was saved as, and it also might just mean that there's something missing, like a .edu at the end of one of the emails. You know, stuff happens. So in this case, we're sending it to me, so I'm there, one user. We're going to send the invitation automatically, and now we're going to import. Quick note, if you did have to fix it, you can just come back here and replace the CSV file, and it will check it again before you import. All right, so let's import. Okay, now after the import, we're going to find that Meraki doesn't always do things instantly. Sometimes tasks are put into a queue. In this case, it went through pretty quickly, but here we'll see succeeded, all users registered. So that means that the email has gone to the student, but there's still more that has to be done. Let me scroll down to the bottom here, and you can see all the names of the students and faculty here are associated with the green check mark. That's where we want to be after the students have received the email, set up their iPad, and all that will be in the classroom. This has to be in place, the associated check mark, for all the students that we've imported before we can give them any apps. So it's that stage of the processing. So here it's showing the blue invited icon, so it sent me an email. Now let's go to my personal email and see if we can find the actual email that the student would see. Okay, so I've moved this into the inbox, but I found this in the junk folder on my personal Gmail account, so they may have to look for it. Let them know that it's come from Cisco Meraki and says no reply as the email address and header. Now this part here, click this invitation link. I'm doing this on a desktop computer, and I don't actually want to associate my iTunes again because it's already associated with it. So when the student does this on the iPad, clicking this link is going to then open their app store on the iPad. So the goal here is that we're going to associate the student's iTunes account with our volume purchasing account from Apple, which has apps on it. And in doing so, we'll link them together so that the student can access the apps licenses that we give to them without having to purchase any of them. Now, the benefit to this is that the student still gets to keep their own iTunes account, and that will prevent them from, say, purchasing something on our platform accidentally if we gave them our iTunes account on every device. It also lets them integrate their personal music and other things, other apps that they find useful into the use of the iPad, so that it's a little bit more of a tool for them that's not sterile and only for the C&M classroom or internship experience. Okay, so this doesn't tie us to their device though. Tying us to their device will be another step that we'll have to review. Now, since I'm not going to be able to click on this link here and associate, again, my iTunes with volume purchasing, we'll just highlight that after that's done in the classroom and their iPads are set up. What I like to do is later that afternoon when I'm in my office hours, I'll go back and make sure that all of the associated green check marks are present. If they are, then I'll push all the apps to them. If they're not present, then I'll go back before I push apps to the other students if I can, and just try to troubleshoot whatever the issue is. It may just be that I have to remind the students to click on the link again, or they didn't actually set that part up in the classroom because they weren't paying attention. You know, stuff happens. So I try to do that and get them all green before I associate the apps. If they're not all green and you've got 2 students that aren't associated yet, I would go ahead and push the apps then. If it's going to take, overnight or whatever for that student to get stuff done, I'd push the other apps to the students and then let that 1 student or 2 students catch up. Okay, now I'm going to show how to retire a user here real quick as well and remove them from the system. So let's fast forward to they've just graduated or exited the program, and we now need to reclaim the licenses because we're going to give licenses to the next incoming paramedic group. So in doing so, there's going to be a process that the user experiences in which after we've retired them from our service, they're going to be notified by Apple and given a 30-day grace period where they can use all the apps that we gave them still for 30 days, and they have 30 days basically to purchase it on their own if they would like to. If they don't want to, then the apps are just, the licenses are just reclaimed and they don't have them on their device after that 30 days. So there's 2 steps to this. It's if we have to get rid of a user and they've already been associated with licenses, then we're going to have to first retire, then we can remove them. So let's click my name here on my personal account. And so you'll notice that if I click, and the difference being that this isn't associated because I didn't tie it to my app store. If I try to remove this, I'll get an error message that will state only retired users can be removed. So in this case, I'm going to retire and then it'll just take my account away because I'm not associated with an account yet. But after you retire it, then you would click those same students and hit the remove button. So let's just retire me. And you can see the disclaimer here, basically giving them that 30-day grace period. We'll hit OK to proceed. And you notice I'm basically deleted. And up here, it shows success. All users that I've selected are retired. So that's how we basically remove students from our platform. Okay. Last troubleshooting, if you have to send a re-invite, just click on that user's name, and it's probably blue with the mail icon, and hit the re-invite, or just the original invite if you didn't send them an email in the first place. If you need any help, reach out to me, or if it's something that you think you can resolve pretty easily with some help online, just find the knowledge base for the subject that you're looking for. Meraki actually has a really good knowledge base and user support to get through. All right, good luck.